Hello, YouTube Sidekick here in my trusty AJS-37 Viggen. I'm going to do another quick weapons tutorial today. This time we're going to talk about the BK-90 cluster bombs, which I guess technically aren't an iron bomb, but they're very interesting weapons, so I wanted to do a video on them. So let's just review exactly what we're talking about here. The Swedish BK-90, or Bomb Capsule 90, is classified as a gliding bomb dispenser. It also goes by the nickname the Mjolnir, which of course is the name of Thor's hammer in Norse mythology. It was designed for the Gripen, but it was added to the Viggen with the AJS update in the early 90s. It's similar to the US AGM-154 joint standoff weapon. The idea is that these weapons are released at some standoff distance from the target. They have no propulsion, but they are aerodynamic, so they can glide some distance, especially if they're released at speed. The Swedish version is designed to be released at a relatively low altitude, about 50 to 100 meters. But even at low altitude, the BK-90s can reach out to several kilometers if they're released at high speeds, like Mach 0.9. The BK-90 guides itself to the pre-recorded target location. There's no need to designate the target in any way. Once over the target, the Mjolnir ejects 72 submunitions through 24 separate barrels. The submunitions consist of either 4-kilogram fragmentation bomblets or 18-kilogram fused proximity-shaped charges to defeat at least semi-hard armor targets. The ejection pattern for a single BK-90 is roughly 250 meters wide by 300 to 400 meters long. The Viggen can carry either 2 or 4 BK-90s in DCS. You can choose when you release them, you can choose to either release 1 or 2 at a time. If you drop 2 at a time, you do have the option to program them from the cockpit to either land one on top of the other, which is the default, or they can land in a long pattern, so you get a pattern that's about 250 meters wide by maybe almost 800 meters long, or you can program them to land side by side in a wide pattern, which would give you an impact area about 500 meters wide by about 300 to 400 meters long. So we're armed up with 2 Mjolnirs for this mission today. Why don't we hop back in the cockpit and take a look. Okay, here we are on our way out to the range. We need to set the mode selector to attack for the BK-90s. When we actually get ready to release, we're going to set the master mode to ANF. So you need attack and ANF for the BK-90s. Get down low here. As per usual, we have a alignment point called B2 that we're going to fly to, and then we're going to turn left and head towards the target. I will point out that you don't actually have to be flying directly toward the target for the BK-90s to deploy properly. That's what I'm going to do just by default, but you can actually offset left or right. Of course, the problem is you can't see the symbology on the HUD when you do that, so I'm not exactly sure how that would work realistically. All right, we're heading towards the target now. And we're just going to get ourselves rolled out. And we're going to put the coals to her, switch it to ANF mode. And you can see the symbology we have is that we have a horizontal line at the bottom of the HUD display with 2 vertical lines. When the horizontal line reaches the vertical lines, we are inside the launch parameters. We can keep going a little longer if we want to, but no need to. So we have dropped the glide bombs, veered off there. Let's take a look and see what's happening. There you can see they've dispensed their bomblets on parachutes. And the bomblets are now descending and waiting until they sense they're either close to the ground or close to a target, at which point they all go off, and so you get this pattern of smaller explosions covering that rectangular area that should be about 250 by, say, 350 to 400 meters wide. And so you can see we've got a double density of bomblets there because both BK-90s released their payloads at exactly the same location or very close to it. But the other option that we have, of course, we have 2 other options. We can either drop them in a long pattern or a wide pattern. So why don't we go back out and start that run again, and this time we will program them for a long pattern. Okay, here we are back in the cockpit, starting our run again. We're going to set the mode selector to attack. Then we're going to go down to the computer dial here. We're going to select it to input. We're going to put it on TAKT. We're going to punch 9, 2, 1. We're going to hit the LS button. We're going to shift it back to output and put the selector back to the top right. And we are ready to go to drop the BK90s in a long pattern. After that, all we're going to have to do is exactly the same thing we did last time. So we're going to get down low. Head for our initial point at B2. Once we get down and get oriented, just wait till we hit the initial point here, and then we're going to turn onto the target. So as you can see, dropping the BK90s is almost ridiculously easy compared to anything else. And they are actually pretty effective. In fact, I'm going to do a little demonstration after we take a look at the different patterns here. We'll take a look at, do a little demonstration of just exactly how effective they are. So we're lined up on the target. We have our targeting line at the bottom of the screen. We are giving it some gas to try and increase the speed, so we increase the standoff. Oops, and that's given us a little bit of a boost to the standoff range. We're already inside range. There they go. You feel the shake as they drop, and we peel off to the left. Just keep the target area in view there. And there they go. This time you can see they're one behind the other. See the pattern is a little bit different than the last time. And you can see the bomblets dropping. And here they go. And there's the second one going. And you can see that we basically got a much longer pattern this time, which was good because that's what we programmed them to do. All right. Well, just for completeness sake, why don't we turn around here and go back out, and this time let's take a look at what it looks if we deploy them in a wide pattern. Just get ourselves sorted out here. We'll go back out and restart the run again. Okay, here we are starting again. Same procedures last time. Turn the dial to tact. Input. This time we're going to hit 922 before we hit LS. Switch the dial back, switch it to output, and set the mode selector to attack, and we are ready to go drop some BK90s in a wide pattern. This time, again, everything else is the same. And we'll get low and we'll head down to B2. Now, as you can see, I haven't really been pushing it that hard in terms of speed. And I haven't been trying to see what kind of, what's the maximum standoff I could get by maybe raising the nose a little as I drop them. These are all things you could experiment with. They certainly give you plenty of standoff to get out of the way of AAA at even set to these kinds of parameters. We're going to do, in our example, we're going to show you just how deadly they can be against something even a little bit more challenging than that, so stick around for that. All right, we're heading into the target now. And we're in ANF mode, and you can see our horizontal line is already decreasing. Notice I'm not pointing at the target, don't need to be. That's not essential. Bombs are gone. Pull off. And we'll try and keep the target in view and see what a wide pattern looks like. There they go, and you can see they're actually beside one another this time as all the little parachutes come down. That the sound seemed to arrive before the light in DCS, but there you go. All right. So you can see that's a much wider pattern than the last time, and so effectively we've figured out how to drop our BK90s in either the standard long or wide pattern. Again, not much to dropping those, so since this is a fairly short video just figuring out how to use them, I thought maybe we'd do something a little bit more interesting and actually fly a brief little mission just to show you just exactly how deadly these things can be, at least how deadly DCS thinks they can be. So here, let's take a look at a little situation that I have set up for us to try. So here's a quick look in the mission editor. We are in the Viggen, which is the A. The target is the cruiser Moskva outside Galenzik. We are armed with 4 BK90s, so we will have to do 2 releases to get them all off. So basically the idea is we're going to fly up here, behind the ridges, hang a quick left-hand turn, drop the Mjolnirs, and skedaddle. And the expectation is that Moskva will spend so much time trying to defeat the Mjolnirs that are coming in that it'll ignore us and let us get away. So let's go see how that works out. All right, here we are in the cockpit again. Just back a little ways from our initial point where we're going to turn in. We don't have to stay that low. We just really need to keep the ridge line between us and the cruiser. Now, anybody who's actually, and we're setting ourselves up to go to attack mode. I'm not going to deploy the BK-90s in any particular pattern. I'm going to try and send them all to exactly the same point. Now, anybody who has gone up against a guided missile cruiser in DCS knows that they are a very hard target to defeat. And this one has given us the great good fortune of getting in very close to land so that we can be hidden until we pop over the ridge, which is really probably the only reason we could even get close enough to do this. If you haven't tried to take on a Moskva before, it has a long-range surface-to-air missile system, has a short-range surface-to-air missile system, and it also has a radar-controlled 30-millimeter close-in weapon system. So it's a pretty difficult target. Now, one thing, though, at least in DCS, if you give it 4 targets to aim at, it's not going to be able to take them all out, especially if they're all released within a few kilometers, so it can't use its SAMs. And while it is busy tracking those very urgent targets close in, it ignores farther targets away, which means that we will be leaving while it's dealing with the Mjolnirs that we drop. And hopefully at least some of the 4 will get through, and that is how we will end up damaging the cruiser. So here we go. Here comes the ridge. We're putting the glass down. There's our targeting line. Waiting for that to get short. There's the cruiser in the distance. Now we're locked up on their radar. But there goes 1 drop. There goes 2 drops. And now it is time to get out of here. Hopefully, the cruiser, and you can see we are no longer being tracked by the radar. So the cruiser is now worrying about those incoming glide bombs, forgetting about us. And there they go. And there goes the close-in weapon system, gets a couple of them, but it doesn't get them all. And so the bomblets are parachuting to Earth. And we are getting out of Dodge. And we have at least, well, according to DCS, we killed the Moskva with BK-90s. Not a bad day's work for the Swedish Air Force. And this is going to be Sidekick, signing off.